Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. I'd now like to introduce Daniel McCormick, who can tell us about his experience as a power developer.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Madam Minister, for the presentation. It was very informative. We always are learning more and more about the Nigerian market. Thank you, Ron, to remind me that the Ontario market is still not perfect either, but it is a good solar market. Honourable ministers in the crowd, I also want to thank the Canada Council on Africa for putting this whole thing on. It's quite impressive to see so many people, well, not in the room right now, but in the room before, and just in general, so much participation is quite impressive. I was asked to come up here today to discuss, as a developer, what would be the barriers to entry and the opportunities to doing a renewable energy project in Nigeria. So with that in mind, let me give you a little bit of a background as to who we are. As I mentioned, my name is Daniel McCormick. I'm managing partner of Epi-Solar Incorporated. We're a renewable energy company based here in Toronto. We have a concentration on solar. Our company has two branches specifically. We do rooftop solar in the U.S. market. Think of all those large Walmart stores with massive rooftops. We concentrate there, and we also do we do ground-mounted project on the international market. We're currently building West Africa's largest solar installation, 65 megawatts DC. I'm sorry to say it's not in Nigeria, but we can change that soon. It's in northwest Ghana. It's in Bole. It's been a long process. It has been a long process of development that's gone on for over 2 years. We're just about to break ground. And we hope to duplicate that success in countries like Nigeria. Because let's take a step back and look at Africa as a whole. It's a great place to do business. Economies are growing. And as you mentioned, Nigeria is a huge market. 160 million. It's the engine that's driving the continent. But there's a need for electrification. We know that. And I also know that when I was in Nigeria in February on the trade mission, there was a will from the Ministry of Power to get 10% of your power from renewable sources. That gives me confidence that it's a place I want to do business. And let's be honest, Africa's a great place for solar. I'm a solar guy, but solar's not the only solution. But we have to be honest and say Africa is perfect for solar. Any of you were outside today. It was a beautiful day here in Toronto. I apologize for the construction. It's been going on for a while. But if you can believe it, in Nigeria, in most places in Nigeria, it is twice as sunny as Ontario or Germany. The reason I bring up Ontario and Germany, those are two largely developed solar markets. And in Nigeria, it doesn't mean you're getting twice as many sunlight hours, but your solar radiation is twice as much. So if I put up a project, that means my project, on average, will get twice as much output from it. It's a great place for solar. It's a place we want to do solar. So as a developer, what do I need? Let me be very, very basic and say what I need. I need land to put the project on. I need a connection. You mentioned we need to be able to connect to the grid. Unless we're doing a project behind the meter, but let's talk about doing a larger scale project, we need to be able to connect to the grid to know that someone's going to buy our power. And we need a rate of power. We need to know what we can sell our power at. Because there's one person that's more important than the developer, the installers. There's an entity that is the funding. They are the ones that make or break any kind of a project like this, and they need to know with certainty how much money they're going to make, how they're going to get their investment paid back. That's what I mentioned on a simple form. But having done business in Africa, we realize one of the most important things is simplicity. Understanding how we're going to get from point A to point B to be able to do an install and to connect to the grid and to supply power to the grid. We know it's not that simple, but to put a path in place to give us as developers and investors clarity and transparency is key. Communication is key. When we're doing our project in a neighboring country, we shall say, we're dealing with 5 different entities. We need to know that they're all communicating with each other. Madam Minister, in your presentation, you mentioned 7 different entities, from the Ministry of Power, Ministry of Environment, NERC, TCN, DISCOs, NIPC, and BET. Every one of those entities need to be speaking to each other so that no surprises happen along the way. That gives us as developers confidence, and it gives the investment confidence. All that to say we want to get government support. If we know that there's communication and we have government support, it gives us confidence. And the last thing I would say is we want to try and mitigate currency risk as much as possible, because it's all about the money. I know I sound very callous when I say that, and I'm not, but there are fantastic projects on the books out there that were developed, brought to a certain point, but then the funding got cold feet. And so we have to make sure we give the funding, both the equity funding and the debt funding, the confidence that they can build a project, can connect, and can get their investment back, and help society at the same time. Talking to that point, you mentioned a skills gap when it comes to green energy and green energy projects. We've noticed in our project in northwest Ghana, community involvement was key. We're using local labor, because what we think is that we think in 10, 15 years, if you want to reach your targets of 10% renewable energy, you will have to have workers on the ground to help you with these projects. We find the skills gap is being narrowed. We're currently training people on installing solar projects. It's a process. But let's be honest, we're reading more and more about the fact that there's a reverse brain drain in Africa. People are coming back to their home countries after being educated elsewhere. So we think that renewables, with the skills gap being narrowed, is going to be a focus for a lot of these people coming back, seeing a great opportunity. In ending, let me say that I saw in your presentation that it is your goal to have stable electricity to 75% of your population within the next few years. We think solar can be a part of that. We think solar, as we mentioned, is a great resource Nigeria has. We think its output matches the demand. It's sunniest in the middle of the day when people are using the most amount of power. So we think that for anyone here from Nigeria, consider solar projects as a part of the mix, and we'd be very, very happy to help. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. That's the conclusion of the panel. We heard about Nigeria's history of reform and about its plans for the future. We learned a little bit about the importance of regulation and the factors that go into developing a successful power market. And that's the word, because it's a market with buyers and sellers that creates the return and the opportunities for the investors. And our last speaker talked about the market from an investor point of view and focused on a particular form, and that is the solar industry and its potential in Nigeria. So please join me in giving thanks to our panel. I think they did a terrific job of covering all areas of electricity. Thank you very much.